So here we go with take 96. I think it's been about 3 years or so, maybe more, maybe less, since I did take 95. And well, the obvious is that I gave up on this. But the Tino Take is something that I really enjoyed. I mean, the name in and of itself was something that was a big deal to me, because I've been wanting to be in the world of broadcasting, podcasting for many years. I was inspired by Gary Null, who really is an amazing person when it comes to broadcasting. And I watched his transition from terrestrial radio to online radio, and it was just amazing. And I realized then and there was going to be, and this was years ago, I mean at the beginning of the 2000s, and I realized that there was going to be a huge future in podcasting, in broadcasting online, because one of the frustrating things about broadcasting back in the day is just the idea that, well, you know, you couldn't easily just get on the radio. You really had to have some kind of resume, you really had to have some kind of experience, or you had to have some connections. You know, the idea of getting on radio, getting behind the mic, and being able to express your ideas was really, as I was growing up, was really something really far out of reach. I mean, as a young man, I would have believed that I had to go to school, I had to have the right connections, I had to have a lot of money, or just had to be really talented in order to be able to get on the radio, because it was just as much the idea of getting on television. Radio was something that would have been seen as a little bit less difficult. Like television was the top. Television was the top. Like if you can get on television, then you were famous. If you can get on the radio, depending on the radio station. But for me, it wasn't about that. It was about the idea that I could share my thoughts, my insights, what I thought about things, my opinions. But that never really became an issue for me. It never became something that I wanted to even dream about until I started to see the transition of terrestrial radio going online. You know, when I started to see that audio could be uploaded easily online with MP3s, I knew, I said, there's going to be a huge future in podcasting. And, you know, it wasn't even called podcasting at the time. I don't even remember why. I don't even remember what the podcasting is, like what the origin of that word is. But I remember when it was beginning to happen, that we started to, I think it was on SoundClick. And when I was doing my music thing and I was looking for a place to host my music, I came across SoundClick. And then when I realized that SoundClick didn't put a limitation, they put a limitation on, I think, the amount of megabytes, but they didn't really put a limitation on the time constraint. So long as you were within the limits of the megabytes, what I would do is just lower the quality of the kilobytes per second, so that I can have longer time. But when you're dealing with just vocals, when you're dealing with just audio in which you're just speaking, it's just your voice, you don't have to worry about the instrumental quality. You know, it was easier for me to just, you know, bring down the kilobytes per second so that I can have a longer MP3. And I think the limit was like 10 megabytes or something like that, because people who wanted to upload a really high quality MP3, you know, you would have the maximum level if a song's like 5 minutes or 7 minutes, which is rare, but 5 minutes would have been an easy target for somebody creating a song. Nowadays, they've become really shorter. But those 5 minutes, if you were to do it at, say, you know, 320 kilobytes per second, you could end up with a lot of megabytes And it's crazy nowadays to be even using the word megabytes as if back then it was a big thing, as if back then it was a big problem having too many megabytes. Now megabytes are like, pennies. Megabytes used to be the big thing. I've spent a lifetime in front of computers since I was a child. And so I've seen the evolution of computers. I remember when the floppy disks became like the hard disks. The floppy disks were actually floppy. And then they became, they were still called floppy disks, but they were a little smaller and they were rigid. So, when floppy disks became the rigid disks, it was like this amazing leap because you could have more memory. Now, nowadays we're looking at terabytes and petabytes, and I think I recently saw a video on YouTube in which they were saying that they developed a new kind of DVD, which looks like a regular CD, but it can hold 200,000 gigabytes. I mean, that's where we're at. I remember when I was in going to community college, the computer science teacher, she was talking about, she was talking about megabytes, and then she was explaining what megabytes are, and then she was explaining what a gigabyte was, and then she mentioned that beyond gigabytes, I think you would have terabytes. And I remember her saying we will never reach that level, because she had, at the time, video wasn't a thing yet that could be digitized. So she was actually saying that terabytes, we would never reach the ability to have terabytes. And and now we're talking about petabytes. And so the idea for me to have what was it, like a 10 megabyte limit for the audio, I worked around that, and I started to create what would be not necessarily podcast, but it was a show in which it lasted probably about an hour. And so I continued to work with that, and then as it evolved from there, YouTube started to come on board, and you could have unlimited podcasting going on. And then after that, look at it today. Look at today. People like Joe Rogan, Valuetainment. Now, Tucker Carlson is and don't mind the noise. You have to just bear with me for a second here. I am on a train. That's kind of like some testing system. And so, yeah, this is my commute time. I have been procrastinating a lot. I mean, a lot, with the idea of wanting to get back into recording things, recording thoughts, recording insights. And so, yeah, this is where it's at now.